Hey, this is kind of an unusual, spur of the moment, not very polished production of Poetry of Predicament podcast. Just stumbled across an article on today, on the internet today, from the Seattle Times. And this is, what day is it? It's the 27th, Friday, 27th of July, Friday, 2018. And this particular Seattle Times article is from a couple days ago. A mother grieves. Orca whale continues to carry her dead calf into a second day. So, for those of you who know me and know us and know the work that we do and what we usually focus on in our podcasts and interviews and books, for that matter, is really how do we how do we face together this extraordinary time of collapse of Earth and human systems? How do we find a way to be more human with one another, more, in this case, more animal with one another, and more heartful with one another in the face of extraordinary stressors, which I don't know if there's anyone out there who's going to argue that we aren't facing daily waves of immense stress from economic, social, cultural, political, and of course environmental. And that's the environmental is what really has me talking with you now. So this article, again, a mother grieves. Orca whale continues to carry her dead calf into a second day, from the Seattle Times. And as you can see by the picture, biologists say orcas mourn the loss of newborns as any family would. On Wednesday, the name of this particular mother orca, the scientific name, or the name that the trackers gave her, is J35, was still carrying her dead calf for the second day straight. In 2010, L20, so that's another earlier orca, photographed in Harrow Strait, did the same thing with her dead newborn in a behavior biologists say is a common expression of grief. The article goes on to say it reflects the very strong bonds these animals have. And as a parent, you can only imagine what kinds of emotional stress these animals must be under having these events happen, says one researcher. The reporter for this particular article, Linda Mapes from the Seattle Times, she says, for 2 days she's grieved, carrying her dead calf on her head, unwilling to let it go. J35, a member of the critically endangered southern resident family of orcas, gave birth to her calf Tuesday, only to watch it die within half an hour. All day and through the night, she carried the calf. She was seen still carrying the calf on Wednesday by Ken Balcom, founder and principal investigator of the Center for Whale Research. It is unbelievably sad, said Brad Henson, wildlife biologist with the Northwest Fisheries Science Center, who has witnessed other mother orcas do the same thing with calves that did not survive. Robin Baird, research biologist with the Cascadia Research Collective in Olympia, in 2010 watched L72, another of the southern residents, as they call these orcas, carry her dead newborn in 2010. It reflects the very strong bonds these animals have, and as a parent, you can only imagine what kinds of emotional stress these animals must be under having these events happen. You could see the calf had not been dead very long. The umbilical cord was still visible. When we were watching, all the rest of the whales were separated by a distance, and they were just moving very slowly. She would drop the calf every once in a while and go back and retrieve it. J35 is doing the same thing, carrying her calf by balancing it on her rostrum just over her nose. She dives to pick it back up every time it slides off. Scientists have documented grieving behavior in other animals with close social bonds in small, tightly knit groups, observed carrying newborns that did not survive. 7 species in 7 geographic regions covering 3 oceans have been documented carrying the body of their deceased young, including Risso's dolphin in the Indian Ocean, the Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphin, and the spinner dolphin in the Red Sea. Pilot whales in the North Atlantic have also been seen doing the same behavior. In one instance, a researcher attached a rope to the carcass of a bottlenose dolphin and towed it to shore and buried it, with the mother following, touching the carcass until she could no longer follow it into the water too shallow to swim. There she remained, watching. Some carried their young in their mouths, some on their backs. Deborah Giles, research scientist for University of Washington Center for Conservation Biology and research director for the nonprofit organization called Wild Orca, also watched L-72 carry her dead calf, following her at a distance in her research boat until the light faded and it was too dark to see. Same thing. It was hours and hours, she said of the whale, but I have never heard of this, she said of J35, more than 24 hours. It's horrible. This is an animal that is a sentient being. It understands the social bonds that it has with the rest of the family members. She carried the calf in her womb from 17 to 18 months. She's bonded to it, and she doesn't want to let it go. It is that simple. She is grieving. The news of the grieving mother came even as researchers are also tracking a 4-year-old in the endangered orca clan that is emaciated. Hansen photographed J50 on Saturday and documented the classic peanut head, a misshapen head due to loss of body fat. Her survival is in doubt. The southern residents face at least 3 known challenges to their survival as a species: toxins, vessel traffic, and lack of adequate food, particularly Chinook salmon. When they are hungry, it makes their other problems worse, research has shown. So let me just stop here and mention how the Chinook salmon got so low. I wonder how that could have happened. Might it be the consistent overfishing for decades in the Pacific Northwest, or could it be possibly that we've dammed every major river that has at one time been their home turf? That's for the Chinook salmon, and the Chinook salmon are exclusively, well, they're the primary food for these orcas. So add that to the toxins that might just be happening in the most militarily saturated strait of ocean water, I think, on Earth. There is more military traffic and the pollutants that go with that than, certainly anywhere else in the USA. Yes, there have been a few factors, but gosh, I guess there's good news. Let's just move on in the article and we'll find out just how much good news there is. Governor Jay Inslee has appointed a task force on orca whale recovery. Jamie Smith, spokeswoman for Inslee, said the task force is looking at a range of solutions, both short and long term. Well, that should answer that. The loss of this calf is a sobering reminder of what's at stake, Smith said, and it's why we've convened partners who we believe can and will be best able to identify what we need to do in the upcoming weeks, months, and years to save these animals. For researchers who work closely with the southern residents, again, as this pod of whales is called, their continued decline is painfully apparent. I'm on the water collecting poop from animals that are not getting enough to eat, Giles said. I don't know if people understand the magnitude of what we're talking about here. We don't have 5 years to wait. We really don't. She said other members of the whale's family knew J35 was pregnant because of their echolocation ability, which they use to find food. So they must be grieving too. So that's the end of the article there from the Seattle Times a couple days ago. I bring it up not just because matters of the ocean are particularly deep in my heart, and this is a hard one for me to report out to y'all. Basically, there are less than 100 of these orcas left in the world. They didn't mention that in this article, and I don't know why. It must be clear to you by now. I mean, it's a fairly selected audience that's watching something like this, so you know about this stuff. But why we don't talk about this stuff as if it matters, as if what's going on in one part of the web of life on this planet isn't affecting us as well. It's extraordinarily obvious to us, I am sure, preaching to the choir. So I would invite us to perhaps speak with others in our circles of friends and family, people who might not be quite as aware and quite as clear on the concept that if you affect one part of the web of life, you affect all parts of the web of life. So this is yet another red flag moment that we are collectively ignoring. I hate to say it, but even a nicely done article like this promises zero results. They're basically gone. So, two things. I'm going to throw in some shameless promotion here. What I think is, even in our select group, where people are fairly collapse aware, fairly aware of the implications of how interwoven we are with the web of life, as much as we want to ignore that collectively. We are collectively not very good at a couple of things that are pretty damn important in a time and an event like this. We don't grieve well. We don't grieve well. We don't really have the ability to grasp what that mother orca is going through, because we do such a horrid job of grieving ourselves collectively. It's just a very, very weak suit in industrialized civilization in the 21st century. And really, prior to that, we have an almost non-existent awareness of trauma, how we are traumatizing ourselves and traumatizing the world around us. To make an animal, a species of animal, go extinct, I can't imagine a more devastating trauma. You are basically annihilating. We are annihilating that species off the face of the planet. That's about as traumatic as it gets. We don't have an awareness of trauma. It's just so normalized to us that we think it's normal business as usual behavior. That something that traumatizes another person, another culture, another nation, families, clearly we have an immense blind spot regarding how violent and how traumatizing we are to ourselves and others in the web of life. So I'd like to invite you, if you aren't already partaking in the things that we are attempting to offer in the Living Resilience Alliance, myself, Carolyn Baker, a number of other very dear people, let me just lay out some things. We do a safe circle call. It's a free 1-hour call on the first, third, and fifth Tuesday evenings in every month. It's on a Zoom video conferencing platform. It's free. And if you would like to get on the mailing list to get the invitations for those calls, you get them a couple days before, then go to livingresilience.net and sign up. It's right there on the front page. Sign up and we will send you invitations, and please join us for safe and heartful conversations about what it is to live in the face of these predicaments. We've also got a September 2018 summit coming up, and that is itself about trauma and how for us to become more aware of trauma, more facile with being able to have greater capacity in the face of trauma and greater resilience in the face of trauma. We have an extraordinary lineup of guest speakers. Again, there's plenty of information there on the website, and there's also going to be a link to an informational video and how to register for that in the show notes here. So you can get in touch with all that. The last thing is we're going to be doing a workshop in Ashland, Oregon in October. We call it Resilience Bridge. It's a long weekend in Ashland in October. Again, that information's on the website, which I'm keeping the link here on the screen. Please check it out. Contact me if you have any questions whatsoever. And in the meantime, I can think of nothing more important to be doing than to take on practices that reconnect us with our deeper selves, with each other, and with the earth. So in grief and in great, great gratitude for being a part of this miraculous web of life right now, Dean Walker, signing out.